can't do a week without lesbian obesity.
So excited.
The federal government spent about $3 million on a study to find out why a lot of lesbians are obese. Don't believe me? Well, we've got some info. The NIH study is now in its 4th year. The project seeks to determine why, quote, nearly 3/4 of adult lesbians are overweight or obese and why gay males are not. The study is slated to last until 2016, and the total funding for the project is just about $3 million. So I don't want to focus on why lesbians are obese, unless quickly you want to do you have
no idea why.
None of us are lesbians here?
Well, I'm going to immediately, I'm not going to blame Obama, but I am going to blame the gluten.
It has something to do with gluten.
He's a gluten guy.
It's a gluten thing.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't want to focus on that part of it. But I thought this brought up an interesting point about just what the government is spending money on and just kind of what we let them spend money on and what we don't know they're spending money on and all that. So let's go there.
I don't know this study in particular, but I'm going to defend science.
Defend science.
A little
Please,
bit here.
I think that's legit too.
Which is, when you take a certain population and you study it, you're trying to remove some factors around it to make it easier to have your findings have a little more purity to them. Studying people who have different genetic makeup or a different, of course people want to believe that lesbians a choice of a lifestyle, but it's clearly it's a nature thing, it's not a nurture thing. So I think it's legitimate. They're probably studying the difference between testosterone and estrogen levels and things like that, and gender. I think it's fascinating, and I think it'll pan out. It'll create a lot of information for the general population. But they're studying a very small slice.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm glad you said that because yes, I do believe in science funding, and I don't understand all the reasons why we do all these studies, but there's probably some relation there. But when I see these things, I think the average person, when they see this in the news, they immediately think this is like, we need, consultants to come into the government and be like, what the fuck are you guys doing? What, really, lesbian? You know what I mean? Like, is this just one of these things that just sounds so ridiculous, so that even if there is scientific worth to it, it's going to get shit, basically?
Well, the key word is funding, and I read the whole article, and I love the lesbians. They quoted what they would call, I guess, a scientific outcome of this was lower athletic self-esteem. That the lesbians have low. Which is complete bullshit. If you know any lesbians, they're awesome in sports, and most board games.
Yeah. Are lesbians good at board games too? I played softball with lesbians and rugby.
They're women, so they're smart.
And Jane Lynch is the game host of America's Game Night or whatever it's called.
Wait, Jane Lynch is a lesbian?
I'm sorry, Jane, I outed you.
Can we not out anyone 1 week?
But here's the thing, and then they went on to quote in the article that because you identify with a certain body type and you may not go out for sports because you're not identifying with that group or you're afraid of being ridiculed. So what does it come back to? You said it earlier, it's funding. It's not the funding of this study, it's the funding they cut out of school. It's shop classes. When I went to junior high, you had electric shop, metal shop, wood shop. You had graphic art design. We used to silk screen shirts.
Yeah.
Now somewhere in there is a lesbian, Xanadu. And quite frankly, if you were funding that, the lesbians could go through the shop classes, find something that was their passion, and go on to be the next imprint revolution, which by the way is on Pico, and they're going to sponsor.
And then that would lead to thinner lesbians, I think is what you're saying.
Well, thinner or fatter is really kind of a
higher self-esteem.
There would be higher self-esteem at any weight.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't be focused on why are they fat as opposed to why don't they have hobbies?
Yeah.
And this all goes back. There are lipstick lesbians too. So I'm just making that point. And there are,
Well, they said 3/4, so you might have 25%.
Okay, that's fine. And then there's the metrosexual gay guys, and then there's the bear gay guy. It's a population, people.
Yeah.
But you have to give. In the formative years, because we keep. Again, because we're doing studies like this, this has got to be one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, ever. But it's because then the tri-hat people, the T people will go, now we got to cut everything.
Right.
So you get like a Jarvis, a Prop 13, and they cut the stuff that would help kids to identify with new groups and to identify with new things they like.
Yeah.
That's what, you cut shop class.
Well, that's why I wanted to do this segment, because I want people to see that, yes, this sounds silly and we can make jokes about it, but to your point, we do need science and all that. So last thought on this, when I was reading this, I was also thinking this is kind of like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, like the NIH. I feel like there's just a lot of shit going on there that we don't know about, and maybe we shouldn't know. Like maybe they're working on the everlasting gobstopper right now, and we can't know about it right now because it's all to that science thing. So we kind of just have to let them, right? We do have to fund some of this and not know what's going on, kind
And
of.
the thing is, the way it's supposed to work is you elect people who oversee these things, people that you supposedly trust. We no longer.
Therein lies the rub.
We no longer trust the people that oversee it, so therefore we no longer
Think
trust.
about it. If we went back to the proposal, the grant for this study, was that someone who's going to, we're going to cure lesbianism once we get them thin, once they have options.
Right.
Like you have to really look at what's behind
what's
this
funding
study, which they do not mention. They
yet,
sort of like put out a paper.
I trust that 90% of the scientists out there have good intentions to find out things that are going to help humanity as a whole. I really do. But I don't know the NIH. I'm sure there's a lot of politics and all of that. And it's ridiculous on paper, and it could be ridiculous. And of course, the media puts it out there to make us all mad about it.